Back again. Here we are, Hatchet Chapter 12. Getting good. Here we go. The fish spear didn't work. He stood in the shallows and waited again and again. The small fish came closer and closer, and he lunged time after time, but was always too slow. He tried throwing it, jabbing it, everything but flailing with it, and it didn't work. Fish were just too fast. He had been so sure, so absolutely certain that it would work the night before. Sitting there by the fire, he had taken a willow and carefully peeled the bark until it had a straight staff, about 6 feet long and just under an inch thick at the base, the thickest end. Then, propping the hatchet in a crack in the rock wall, he had pulled the head of the spear against it, carving a thin piece off each time until the thick end tapered down to a needle point. Still not satisfied, he could not imagine hitting one fish with a single point. He carefully used the hatchet to split the point up the middle for 8 or 10 inches and jammed a piece of wood up into the split to make a two-pronged spear with the points about 2 inches apart. It was crude, but it looked effective and seemed to have good balance when he stood outside the shelter and hefted the spear. He had worked on the fish spear until it had become more than just a tool. He had spent hours and hours on it, and now it didn't work. He moved into the shallows and stood, and the fish came to him. Just as before, they swam around his legs, some of them almost 6 inches long, but no matter how he tried, they were too fast. At first, he tried throwing it, but that had no chance. As soon as he brought his arm back before he threw it, the movement frightened them. Next, he tried lunging at them, having the spear ready just above the water and thrusting it in. Finally, he actually put the spear in the water and waited until the fish were right in front of him. But still, somehow, he telegraphed his motion before he thrust and saw it and flashed away. He needed something to spring the spear forward, some way to make it faster than the fish, some motive force, a string that snapped, or a bow and arrow. A thin, long arrow with a point in the water, and the bow pulled back so that all he had to do was release the arrow. Yes, that was it. Shh, I'm reading. He had to invent the bow and arrow. He almost laughed as he moved out of the water and put his shoes on. The morning sun was getting hot, and he took his shirt off. Maybe that was how it really happened. Sorry, I lost my place. Maybe that was how it really happened. Way back when, some primitive man tried to spear a fish, and it didn't work until he invented the bow and arrow. Maybe it was always that way and discovered what had happened because they needed it to happen. He had not eaten anything yet this morning, so he took a moment to dig up the eggs and eat one, and he reburied them, banked the fire with a couple of thicker pieces in the wood, and settled the hatchet on his belt. He took the spear in his right hand and set up off the lake to find wood to make a bow. Kaiser, stop. No, 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 no. Sorry, he's moving the computer. Oh, goodness, that was such a scurry sound. Okay, sorry. So he took the spear in his right hand and set up to the lake to find wood to make a bow. He went without a shirt but something about the wood smoke smell on him kept the insects from bothering him as he walked to the beach to the berry patch. The raspberries were starting to become overripe just in 2 days. He would have to pick as many as possible after he found the wood, but he didn't take. I'm sorry, but gosh, I keep losing my place. I'm blaming Kaiser the cat. But he did take the little time now to pick a few of them and eat. They were full and sweet, and when he picked one, 2 others would fall off the limbs into the grass. As soon as his hands and his cheeks were covered with red berry juice, he was full. That surprised him, being full. He had thought he would never be full again, um, knew only the hunger. And here he was, full. One turtle egg and a handful of berries, and he felt full. He looked down in his stomach and saw it was still caved in. It did not bulge out as it would with 2 hamburgers and a freezy slush. It must have shrunk. And there was still hunger there, but not like it was, not tearing at him. This was hunger that he knew would always be there when he had food, a hunger that made him look for things, see things, a hunger that made him hunt. He swung his eyes across the berries to make sure the bear wasn't there at his back. And then he moved down the lake. The spear went out before him, automatically moving the brush away from his face as he walked. When he came to the water's edge, he swung left, not sure what he was looking for, not knowing what wood might be best for the bow. He had never made a bow, never shot a bow in his life, but it seemed that would work. It seemed that would be along the lake near the water. He saw some young birch, and they were springy, but they lacked snap somehow, as did the willows. Not enough whip back. Oh my goodness, Kaiser. Come here. Okay. Halfway up the lake, just as he started to step over his log, he was absolutely terrified by an explosion under his feet. Something like a feathered bomb blew up away in a flurry of leaves and thunder. It frightened him so badly that he fell back down, and then it was gone, leaving only an image in his mind. A bird it had been, about the size of a very small chicken, with only a fantail and stubby wings that had slammed against its body and made a loud noise. The noise there and was gone. He got up and brushed himself off. The bird had been speckled brown and gray, and he must not have been very smart because Brian's foot had nearly been on it before he flew. Half a second more and he would have stepped on it and caught it, he thought, and eaten it. He might be able to catch one or spear one, or maybe he thought maybe it tasted like chicken. Maybe he could catch one or spear one, and it probably did taste just like chicken. Just like chicken when his mother baked it in the oven with garlic and salt and it turned golden brown and crackled. Well, Kaiser likes chicken too. He shook his head to drive the picture out and moved down to the shore. There was a tree there with long branches that seemed straight, and when he pulled on one of them and let go, it almost had a vicious snap to it. He picked one of the limbs that seemed right and began chopping where the limb joined the tree. The wood was hard, and he did not want to cause it to split, so he took his time. Small chips and concentrated so hard at first that he didn't hear it. A persistent whine, like the insects, only more steady, with the edge of a roar to it in his ears. And he chopped and cut and was thinking of a bow and how he would make a bow and how it would be when he snapped it with the hatchet, and still the sound did not cut until the limb was nearly off the tree and the wine was inside his head. And he knew it then. A plane. It was a motor, far off, but seeming to get louder. They were coming for him. He threw down the limb and his spear, and holding the hatchet, started to run for camp. He had to get that fire up on the bluff and signal to them and get fire and smoke up. He put all of his life into his legs and jumped logs and moved through brush like a ghost, swiveling and running, his lungs filling and blowing. Now the sound was louder, coming in his direction. If not right at him, at least closer. He could see it all in his mind now, the picture, the way it would be. He would get the fire going and the plane would see the smoke and circle once and then again and wag its wings, and it would be a float plane. It would land on the water and come across the lake, and the pilot would be amazed that he was alive after all these days. All of this he saw as he ran for the camp and the fire. They would take him from here this night, this very night, and he would sit with his father and eat and tell him all the things. He could see it now. Oh, yes, all the thing, or oh, yes, all as he ran the sun, his legs liquid springs. He got to the camp, still hearing the whine of the engine. One stick of wood had a good flame. He dove inside, grabbed the wood, and ran around to the edge of the ridge, scrambling up like a cat, and blew and nearly had the flame feeding, growing when the sound moved away. It was abrupt, as if the plane had turned. He shielded the sun from his eyes and tried to see it, tried to make the plane become real in his eyes. But the trees were so high and so thick. Now the sound was still fainter. He kneeled again to the flames and blew, added grass and chips, and the flames fed and it grew. In moments, he had a bonfire as high as his head. But the sound was gone. Sorry. Look back, he thought. Look back and see the smoke. Now, turn. Please turn. Look back, he whispered, feeling the pictures fading, seeing his father's face fade like the sound, like lost dreams, like an end to hope. Oh, now, turn and come back. Look back, see the smoke, turn for me. But it kept moving away and away till he could not even hear it in his imagination, in his soul. Gone. He stood on the bluff over the lake, his face cooking in the roaring bonfire, watching the clouds of ash and smoke go into the sky, and thought, no, more than thought, he knew that he would not get out of this place. Not now, not ever. That had been a search plane. He was sure of it. Must have been them, and they had come as far off to the side of the flight plan as they thought they would have to come, and then they turned back. They did not see his smoke, did not hear the cry from his mind. They would not return. He would not leave now, or he would never leave now, never get out of here. He went down to his knees and felt the tears start cutting through the smoke and ash on his face, silently falling onto the stone. Gone, he thought finally. It was all gone, all silly and gone. No bows, no spears or fish or berries. It was all silly, anyways. It was just a game. He could do a day, but not forever. He could not make it if they did not come for him some day. He could not play the game without hope, could not play the game without a dream. They had taken it all away from him now. They had turned away from him, and there was nothing for him. The plane gone, his family gone. They would not come. He was all alone, and there was nothing for him.